Nine Years of Shadows is a pixel graphics Metroidvania game with a story focused on bringing back life and color to a world long since abandoned as such. You play as the heroine Europa, who seeks to rid the world of the corruption that spreads from its depths. Along the way, you meet Alpino, a mysterious but powerful ghost in the form of a plushy bear who accompanies you on your journey, mystically able to keep the corruption at bay from Europa. Nine Years of Shadows is steeped in art, mystery, and storytelling not often found in the game of this genre. But is it any good? Is it fun to play? That's what I'm going to detail in this video. To begin, generally speaking, the game plays out very much like any of its kind in this genre. There are issues with gameplay that I'll go over later, but really, you can take a quick look at the playstyle of this game and in a few seconds know exactly what you're going to get. There are no real surprises in this game on that front. The primary gimmick of the game revolves around making use of elemental-infused armors that you find throughout the castle. Each armor empowers you with a different style of swing with your halberd, the ability to take advantage of certain monster weaknesses, and most of all, gives you a unique form of travel that allows you to explore different parts of the castle. You can collect artifacts to empower each armor as well to become stronger than its base form, allowing you to deal more damage with it. First and foremost, my favorite part about this game is the main character herself. Europa is a very fleshed out character with a lot of depth. To me, she's an excellent example of a good protagonist, complete with strengths and flaws, both of which are made apparent at times. There's no girl bossing here. She's taken her losses and looks worse for wear, especially near the beginning. Yet despite her hard life, she's managed to keep herself together and mostly composed. She's brave, but shows insecurity. Confident at times, doubtful at others. Friendly to most strangers unless prompted otherwise. She's a great hero and honestly, maybe the best I've seen in a long time, especially in this genre of game. I really liked the story and dialogue and found all the smaller bits of insight into her character to be very cool, just really engaging overall. The recurring motifs of various forms of art to support the theme of how art supports life or life without art isn't worth living was an interesting touch. Everywhere you go, there are pieces of conventional art in some form or another. Music, color, poetry, and performance have a large presence throughout the game. You encounter a variety of musicians and painters along your journey who help you with your quest. The theater in the tower is one of the last safe havens from corruption. So yeah, there's music and art everywhere. I mean hell, even the blacksmith carries a saxophone around with them. It's weird, but it works and I found this artistic element to be the most standout aspect of the game that sets it apart from others like it. There are also quite a few ties to Greek mythology as well as a few biblical references, though I have to say, if you're even acutely aware of the origin of some of these names, it'll give away the story a bit. Just a bit though. I like the artwork done on the characters. It's like this modern rendition of the late 70s, early 80s anime that fits together very well. Character art was always something I looked forward to in my playthrough. The various drawings of Europa in different sets of armor, as well as her different facial expressions and conversations, was fun to see and just brought more completion to her already well-crafted character. The artists and painters were a little bit weird, most of them anyways, but I guess when it comes to the artsy types, that's sort of par for the course. The game makes excellent use of color and sound to convey different feelings of sadness and hope. It made playing through the game to be engaging, and I found myself really liking detail that some areas got. The use of elemental affinities and weapons and monster weaknesses was also a neat touch. I like how you could switch between armors quickly and then with just a press of the button to match the weaknesses that monster have. You didn't have to do this, but the bonus damage made doing so worthwhile in most cases. Most of the boss fights I liked, and I found the difficulty with most of them to be exactly what I'd like to have. Bosses are plenty, which was good, but the setup for how they're scaled is a bit of a double-edged sword that I'll get into the next section. For now, I'll just say that I like being able to fight creatures, monsters of myth, and people. There's a good variation in who it is that you fight in this game. I won't go into spoilers, but overall, it was a good story and I enjoyed the ending. Again, solid writing and an excellent protagonist really pulled through in this front, but everything was for the most part pretty good story-wise. Probably the most crippling weakness of the game for me was the terrible fast travel system. The castle has a main elevator to help you access different areas once they're unlocked, but the elevator works, like all elevators do, in a linear fashion going up a primary shaft to the castle. The map, however, is built like a giant square block with as much, if not more, areas on a lateral scale than on a linear one. Therefore, the fast travel system isn't of much use, and in most situations, you're forced to travel from point A to point B purely on foot. This, compounded with the fact that there are numerous enemies that take quite a few hits to kill, make traversing the game to be frustrating at times. Even in the end, when you have unlocked your final form and are given a faster run speed with that final form's ability, you're still doing your last bits of exploration the hard way. And God help you if you miss something from one of the portrait maps, because there's no fast way to get there. You have to find the unmarked room and access that portrait through the original portal you used while playing through the story. All in all, traveling the map in this game is tedious and could have used a much better design. 9 Years of Shadows' bestiary falls a little flat in delivering a wide array of monsters to fight. Granted, there are many monsters that have elemental affinities attached to them, which not only alters their weakness, but also gives them different kinds of attacks. However, if you really counted up the number of unique looking monsters that were not bosses, then they number in and around 20. I counted. You will find bats, fat spiders, and boomerang throwing mobs in every area of the game, and that goes for a lot of these things. The only difference is how they're green in some areas, red in others, and so on. Coloration doesn't mean it's something new, and the novelty did wear thin after a while. I think power scaling could have been done better in the game. You have a means to power up all your special armors, which in turn makes your halberd stronger, but the bump in power didn't really scale as well as I'd hope it would. There are a number of enemies that, at first, take quite a few hits to take down, and the reward for doing so is minimal. There's no EXP, and the gold they give doesn't add up to much. This is a game where you're rewarded more for just evading monsters when possible, since respawns happen every time you move to a different screen. The power-up bonus your armor gets is fairly minimal, 25% or so, which means the strikes go from a 4 instead of a 3. You get where I'm going with this. The reward for killing monsters is money, but money is found aplenty in this game, and it's in every pot and plant that you break. I had a ton of money throughout my entire playthrough and never once felt poor. I kept expecting some huge expense to pop up where I'd have to fork out 1,000 gold for something, but it never happened. I think it'd be good if you could power up your weapon further for cash, and that'd go a long way to solving some of the game's problems. The aesthetic design in the game is really a bit of a mixed bag. I know I kind of praised that earlier, but some areas and monsters look very well done with a great polish on them. Others looked rushed and without much detail. It looks weird because at times you feel like you're playing a first generation Super Nintendo game, and other times you think you're on borderline PSX quality. Some areas look really well done, and others I think were a bit bland, which, given the theme of the game, I understand, but in this case it felt like it was rushed and not done with intent. Lastly comes the boss battles. Now, I liked most of them, and I think the difficulty was pretty fair. There are some tough mechanics that take a bit of practice, and it helps if you can time your shield regen just right, but that's fine. It's a learning curve, and there weren't too many bosses that I found frustrating, except maybe for the last two. And it's not because they were too terribly hard, but because they were so long and dragged out. The second last boss took me over 5 minutes to kill, and the last boss, a 4-phase fight, took me over 6 minutes. On the last boss, I think most of it was great, except for that final phase. It just felt like it was too much, and the boss in that final phase still took a walloping to bring down. I think that for a lot of players, this would have been a point of frustration because the difficulty definitely ramped up in the last 20% of the game, to heights that seemed a bit much for the casual player, I'm thinking. Playtime for me came up to be just over 8 hours, and I'm a slow player, though on Steam it clocks me at having played for 14 hours, which seems more accurate. I don't really count what I'm actively doing, and I'll do things like put down the controller to eat some lunch while leaving the game on pause to come back to it a little bit later. Anyways, I'm a little bit sad that there's no replayability at all, but maybe I've just become accustomed to seeing new game pluses in recent memory. Still, It would have been nice to have something more to it, and I did read a little bit or two about having a DLC in the future, but honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. Despite its faults, I still enjoyed 9 Years of Shadows and found myself engrossed in it for most of my time playing, and I guess when it comes to a game that's what really counts. Did I enjoy playing the game from start to finish? Yes, I did. Despite some of its flaws, it has enough of a unique vibe that it'll keep you interested in playing and liking it for the most part. The characters and stories are good, and it has some good world building aspects. Gameplay could be improved on, but for the most part it's fine. If you're someone who feels they need to kill everything in their path, like me, then it might be a bit frustrating at parts. But if you're cool to just skip by monsters when you don't feel like fighting them, then this will go down well. Anyhow, I'd recommend getting the game if you see it on sale. That's my assessment. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again.